When someone mentions a party this weekend and your first instinct is to mentally search for a graceful excuse. Not because you're sad. Not because you're anxious. But because the idea of being alone actually feels better. Calmer. More appealing. And for a long time, society has been completely wrong about people like that. We've been taught to see solitude as a problem. Something to fix. Something temporary until real life starts. But psychology is finally catching up to something many people have known quietly their entire lives. There's a difference between being lonely and being alone. One hurts. The other heals. For decades, psychologists lumped everyone who preferred solitude into the same box. Introverted. Antisocial. Disconnected. As if enjoying your own company meant you were one bad day away from becoming isolated or unstable. But then researchers asked a different question. What if some people don't avoid others out of fear or pain? What if they simply prefer being alone? In 2016, psychologists at the University of Buffalo studied this exact idea. They introduced a term most people had never heard before, unsociability. Not antisocial, which is hostility toward others. Not avoidant, which is driven by fear. But unsociable, a calm, confident preference for solitude. And when they studied these people, something surprising happened. They weren't struggling. They weren't lonely. They weren't less fulfilled. They were doing just fine. Often better than average. So what's actually going on inside the mind of someone who genuinely likes being alone? It starts with how their brain processes stimulation. Extroverts tend to get a strong dopamine boost from social interaction. The energy, the conversation, the shared laughter. Their brains need that level of stimulation to feel balanced. People who enjoy solitude often have a more sensitive dopamine system. They reach their optimal level of stimulation much faster. What energizes one person can overwhelm another. Think of it like spice tolerance. One person needs the whole jalapeno to feel anything. Another just needs a single flake of chili and they're done for the day. This means loud environments, constant interaction, and non-stop conversation can feel draining instead of exciting. Solitude isn't emptiness for them. It's regulation. But it goes deeper than that. When people who enjoy being alone spend time by themselves, their prefrontal cortex becomes more active. This is the part of the brain responsible for deep thinking, reflection, creativity, and complex problem solving. They're not just sitting around doing nothing. Their mind is processing, organizing, creating. This is why so many breakthroughs happen in solitude. Not in brainstorming sessions. Not in crowded rooms. But on quiet walks. In the shower. Late at night when no one else is awake. Einstein worked alone. Newton worked alone. Virginia Woolf famously wrote about the need for a room of one's own. Maya Angelou rented hotel rooms just to write in silence. This pattern shows up again and again. Solitude isn't the absence of activity. It's the presence of internal movement. But here's where things get uncomfortable. Not everyone who is alone is choosing solitude. And psychology makes a very important distinction here. Do you choose to be alone, or are you hiding in it? Because solitude can be healthy. But it can also be armor. Psychologist Abraham Maslow talked about this difference. He explained that healthy solitude comes from abundance, not scarcity. You enjoy being alone because you know you can connect when you want to. You're not running from people. You're running toward yourself. So the real question isn't, do you like being alone? It's why. If your answer sounds like recharge, create, think, process, you're probably in a healthy place. If your answer sounds like safer, easier, less painful, that doesn't mean you're broken. It just means there's something worth paying attention to. There's a big difference between preference and protection. People who truly thrive in solitude have figured out something most of us are still learning. Being alone does not mean being incomplete. We talk about relationships like people are halves looking for completion. My other half. You complete me. As if a person on their own is somehow unfinished. But people who enjoy solitude tend to reject that idea entirely. They don't see themselves as half of something. They see themselves as whole. And research supports this. Studies from psychologists like Dr. Bella DePaulo showed that people who are comfortable being alone often maintain stronger, more stable relationships. Not fewer connections, better ones. Because they're not trying to get all their needs met by one person. They're not clinging. They're choosing. They understand something subtle but powerful. The quality of your alone time shapes the quality of your social time. When you've spent time with yourself, you show up differently. You're not depleted. You're not resentful. You're not unconsciously asking others to fill a gap you haven't explored on your own. You bring your full self, because you've already been with yourself. There's a word for this in Japan. Hitori. Time spent alone. And it's not treated as strange. It's respected. There are restaurants designed specifically for solo diners. Movie theaters with individual seating. Even solo karaoke booths. They've built an entire cultural understanding around the idea that being alone is sometimes exactly what a person needs. Meanwhile, in many other cultures, eating alone is treated like a red flag. As if solitude must always be explained. So if you're someone who genuinely enjoys being alone, here's the truth. You're not weird. You're not broken. You're not missing out. Your brain is wired to restore itself through solitude. And in a world that demands constant availability, constant stimulation, and constant performance, that ability is rare. The real danger isn't enjoying your own company. It's never learning how. But honesty still matters. Check in with yourself. Can you connect when you want to? Do you have people you trust? Are you choosing solitude, or using it to avoid pain? The healthiest relationship with being alone is one where it's a choice, not a defense. So the next time someone asks why you canceled plans, why you'd rather stay home with a book, why you're always alone, you could explain dopamine sensitivity, prefrontal cortex activation, cultural differences, a century of psychological research. Or you could just smile and say, because I like myself. And that usually ends the conversation. If this video put words to something you've never been able to explain, don't scroll. The videos on screen go deeper into how your brain processes stimulation and why certain routines feel necessary to you. They're not random. They answer the questions this video probably just raised. I'll see you there.